Prosecuted during the Drug Enforcement Administration's Operation Cyberjuice. Today, he's here to educate us on performance enhancing drugs. Please welcome Ryan Root. G'day, mate. Welcome.
Mm, Well, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Well,
Uh,
that's got a bit of juice in it. The Drug
yeah.
Enforcement Administration's Operation Cyberjuice. Uh, Take us back to before you got prosecuted. What was happening?
Sure. So I guess it all started when I was young. Well, I now know that I had low testosterone my whole life. I had all the symptoms. Even growing up, I never matured like my peers. At 13, I started to get picked on because I was so skinny, and so that led me to hit the gym. Right, start hitting the weights, and I never looked back. However, I still didn't mature like my peers. Um, I was depressed, fatigued, lethargic. Again, didn't develop like everybody else around me. So some of my peers could go to the gym for just I had to put in twice the amount of the effort to get half the results. Right, and it wasn't only physical. Like I said, I was also depressed, fatigued. I used to even get called a lazy piece of crap by adults, right? Because and I just thought, well, this is my life. I just can't do this life thing. I had to nap every day, right? Um, so again, because I was depressed, I let myself get walked on. I was, well, I've already said depressed, but so in my early 20s, I started to realize that something was wrong here. So I started to kind of look into testosterone. And I asked some of my doctors to help me, and none of them would help me. They all said that there's no way somebody in their early 20s can have low testosterone, so we're not even going to check you, right? So they wouldn't even look into it. They wouldn't help at all. So I took my, and at 23 years old, I took my health into my own hands and I started to take testosterone. And as soon as I took it, it dramatically improved my quality of life to the point where I live two completely different worlds, two completely different lives. So I, for to understand exactly what it did for me, like, and especially other people who go to the gym will understand this. But and once again, I don't want to say that it was only just a physical and muscle enhancing. There was a lot of other benefits to it, but just to show you how much my body was starving for testosterone, I immediately put on about 34 pounds of muscle, and I put 100 pounds on my bench press in just 5 weeks. It was just I hyper responded. It was a dramatic effect. So, but along with that came energy. I didn't have to nap anymore. It turns out I was a motivated, ambitious person. I just needed the right amount of testosterone. I became confident, and what I also want to explain is the way that the world changed around me, and that society and the people started treating me differently. So I immediately was respected by everybody. I immediately everybody wanted to befriend me. I would walk into a bar and every head would turn. I would walk through that bar and the crowd would like part in front of me. When I was in college, I was a plumber. Right? I hated plumbing. I didn't want to do that for the rest of my life. It was just my college job. I was terrible at it. But after I started taking testosterone, my boss suddenly gave me a raise for no better reason than I stood before him confident and looking stout. Right? So the way that I was treated was just different. Um, I happened to be in school for biochemistry at the time. I I had to learn what is going on here. Why is this helping so much? And most of all, why is nobody talking about this? So I tailored my degree to the study of hormones, and I read voraciously. Well, most kids my age in college came home and played video games. I couldn't wait to come home and study more about hormones. So I just read it. I couldn't put the information down, and I pretty soon I got really adept at understanding how to use these hormones, and it's complex, right? So I started to be able to. Other people came to me and noticed the dramatic change I made in my life, and they asked me how you did that. So I started to show people, and I started to guide others. And when I started to get um, the appreciation and gratitude from other people for helping them dramatically improve their quality of life, it drove a dose response, dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins, right? And that drove passion. So now I finally found my niche. I find, like, prior to that, I was just this kid who didn't know his place in the world, in the economy. I didn't really understand what I was doing, and now I finally found it. Like, I can do this, and I'm better at it than most people, and I'm helping people, and I'm finally a benefactor. Right? So it just drove a passion, and I just dove into it every single day for, since I was 23. So now it's been over 20 years. Um, so yeah, I mean, do you want me to just keep going with the story?
Right, I want to hear more of it because as I listen to it, one of the things that's going through my mind is
Mm,
for men in their 40s. So I'm 45. I'll be 46 this year. Um, the first biggest killer for men is critical heart failure,
mhm,
and second is uh, self harm and ending their own life. And
mhm,
what you're saying there is not being able to find your place in the world, physically, financially, but also socially, not being able to interact with others, but then having a significant change. And and as you say that, I'm thinking about a lot of the guys I know who have been on hormone replacement therapy. They repeat the same things.
mhm.
They were
Yeah,
small. They couldn't develop. Uh,
yeah,
they didn't articulate it like you. They had their own ways, but they're like, we just didn't feel manly,
mhm,
kind of like a
yeah,
boy,
yeah,
mentally and physically.
yeah,
They hadn't developed. It's just fascinating how you've said it.
yeah. So absolutely. So if I wanted anybody to get anything from this podcast, it is that there's a few things, and one is that testosterone replacement therapy, hormone replacement therapy in general, even for females, for men, is not dangerous. Right? We have been misinformed to to believe in, and there's been a stigmatization and demonization unfairly for decades and decades, and every single risk factor has now been debunked. Every single
Mm.
risk factor. There are no risk factors. If you take these beneficial treatments. Another thing I want people to know is testosterone, hormones in general, especially testosterone, but also estrogen, progesterone for females. Men need estrogen too, and progesterone, but men definitely need estrogen. Um, they are one of the is one of the most beneficial medications in the history of medications. It's right up there with vaccines. Vaccines for like smallpox and polio, or even antibiotics, and nobody really dies of infections anymore, right? So those are massively beneficial, that have changed the human situation, and testosterone is right up there with all those. Again, not dangerous at all, and if done in therapeutic doses, there's no risk. There are no risk factors. It's not dangerous. And again, all the antiquated notion that it could increase the risk of prostate cancer has been debunked. It does not. In fact, it protects against some forms of aggressive prostate cancer. Cardiovascular disease, as you mentioned. So I have seen testosterone get people off of blood pressure medications, off of cholesterol medications, off of um, depression medications, SSRIs, because and other depression medications, because it's dopaminergic and serotonergic. It gives you a sense of well-being. It increases tyrosine hydroxylase, which increases the production of catecholamines such as dopamine and serotonin. These make you feel good. Dopamine specifically gives you energy, motivation, ambition to do better in your life. I've seen it get
Can
people
I,
off
can
of
I just
pain medications.
ask something there? You talked about motivation and discipline.
Hmm.
I think a lot of people see these as equated, but they're very different things. And I think you can be very disciplined, but if you lack the energy, if you have the brain fog, if you don't have the dopamine, the other things, it doesn't matter how disciplined you are, the energy's not there to do it.
Yeah, the drive to go, make the changes necessary to make your life better, right? You're exactly
Mm.
right. The energy and the focus to make that happen. And that's what dopamine is, and that's what testosterone does. I mean, not only does it increase the production of dopamine, but testosterone directly, or androgens in general, directly agonize the D2 receptor, which is a dopamine 2 receptor. So there's some, it's powerfully dopaminergic, which is very positive,
Mm.
right? I've seen it get people off pain medications, off of, because it's systemically anti-inflammatory. It gets rid of like a lot of those. joint pains, and I've just seen it bring people out of opioid addictions that where they were just, they had some sort of pain, and so they were put on opioids, and then it just went from there. And people who were just bedridden, I've seen it get people up off of opioids and into a new life. Like, it's just been, I've seen miraculous things, right? The What I also want people to know along with this is that hormone deficiency is pervasive. It's much more common than people think, especially in a day of environmental toxins. We have evidence and direct proof that pesticides, fungicides, other environmental toxins. It's in the ink on receipts. It's in the soaps you use, the water you drink, the food you eat. It's everywhere. Environmental toxins have been proven to be endocrine disruptors, and they're lowering our hormones. They're lowering our testosterone. Uh, so so it's pervasive. It's much more pervasive than people think. And if you're experiencing some of these side effects, it's important to get checked out.
Mm.
Everybody should have a baseline of their testosterone. Even when you're young, get a baseline so you can see where you were when you were younger. And sometimes it's like it's not about the number, it's how far you've come down. Like if you had a thousand or 1,500 testosterone in your early 20s, and now you're in your early 30s and you're at 500 or 600, that's a massive drop, and you're going to feel that, right?
Mm.
Your body does best at a higher testosterone level, right? So I mean, there's just a lot of factors, but that's what's important for people to know, is just
Mm.
how beneficial this is and how pervasive, and that we have been misled and misinformed for decades. There's been a
Mm.
stigma and demonization.
Mm. I remember that demonisation of PEDs, and in Australia there was a famous doctor. I don't want to name his name because I think they shamed him too much, but he was working with the athletes, and it was like they all had this competitive advantage, but
Yeah.
they were getting their hormones right, and he was doing a really good job at helping. So it went from being something that was seen as positive to demonised in the Australian media.
Mhm.
But there was no complaints for the people receiving the hormone
Yeah.
replacement therapy. They didn't
Yeah.
complain.
Well, and neither did the audiences too, because like you,
Sure.
like another example of that is in the United States, the baseball, right? There was the whole
The
Balco
heavy hitters.
thing. They created these untestable androgens for, and they were used in all sports, but baseball is where it really became defined and obvious. There was more home runs hit, and nobody watched more baseball than when those Mark McGuire and Sammy Sosa were just smashing home runs, chasing each other for the home run. It was so exciting and it was
Mhm.
fascinating, and everybody watched it and everybody loved it. And and then when Congress got a hold of it for some reason, like our in the United States, the Congress decided to stick their nose into baseball, which really they have no business sticking their nose in. And they had these congressional meetings on it, and it just got crazy. And that's when the controlled substance, the Steroid Control Act of 1990 was signed, making testosterone a controlled substance, which makes it difficult to study, difficult to research, and it gives access. It makes it a lot of red tape and a lot of hurdles to access it, right?
Mm.
So and right about that time too is when the stigmatization started. So now we have all these people bashing on these performance enhancing drugs, and they're just getting a negative name and a negative connotation. And then the studies that started coming out were all biased about how the negative effects that they could possibly cause, and many of them were wrong, right? And so now we have people thinking that testosterone can cause prostate cancer. It does not. That it can cause cardiovascular disease. It's the opposite. Just like you were saying, like people say their energy comes back, but it reduces metabolic disorder, right? Through several factors. Building muscle, one of those things. Building muscle, it takes a lot of energy to build muscle mass and to maintain that muscle mass.
Mm.
And it changes your the way that your body, like testosterone is a signal, a metabolic signal for the way your body gets energy. When you're testosterone low, you're in what's called a catabolic state. Your body will actually burn its own proteins, its own muscle mass as a primary source of energy over your fat stores. When your testosterone is at a adequate level, you're in what's called an anabolic state, which means that you're building and preserving muscle mass, and now your body's using fat stores as a primary source of energy. So when you have people in the catabolic state and say they lose weight, they become what people call skinny fat, right?
Mm.
The term skinny fat comes from that. It's people with hormone deficiency who have lost weight. You've lost all this when you lose weight as somebody in catabolism, you lose a lot of muscle, you keep your fat, so you don't look right. You lose weight, but you don't look right. And that's a function of that. So increasing your metabolism, reducing cholesterol, right, really makes people healthy. And it has been proven that testosterone reduces cardiovascular risk for these reasons. Reverses diabetes and pre-diabetes. Uh, Muscle tissue is the most insulin sensitive tissue. So, I mean, we just see reversal of diabetes. We see it all the time.
It's it's I think a lot of people would listen and go, it just seems too good to be true.
Yeah. Right. Like, and I've heard that too, because I've heard that people say, oh, yeah, you have this snake oil that the doctors don't know about. And it's like, it's so like, I can equate it to taking a similar path to marijuana. Like, I mean, and this is in the United States. I'm actually not sure how it's addressed in other countries, but in the
Just
United
the death
States, like,
penalty here.
what's that?
Just the death penalty.
Is it really for marijuana? Well, I mean, so you can see there, right? Like, I mean,
Mm.
so back in the 1950s in the United States, there was something called reefer madness. Actually, I think it started before the 1950s. Something called reefer madness, where people were taught, educated that marijuana was deadly. If it was dangerous, and if you smoked it, you could die or go crazy.
Mm.
So that's what made in the United States, they made it a Schedule 1 controlled substance. Schedule 1 means that there's no medical value and that you can't even get it for research purposes. That is just completely a dangerous drug. Now, again, those that stigma and demonization started the 50s, maybe before, and it took to about 2008-ish for the government to first start to realize, or the people and the government to first start to realize, okay, wait a second, marijuana is not that dangerous. And in fact, it does have a lot of medical value. So, but it took like a span of like 60 years for that to happen, right? For
Mm.
the stigmatization and that inculcation of this misinformation to just start to abate over time, right? So, and it's the same thing. Like, why would you have the death penalty for marijuana? It's not like nobody dies from marijuana. It's not
Mm.
dangerous. I mean, granted, like it can be abused, and you can probably be less productive and eat a lot of stupid things if you smoke
And
it, but it's
say
not
dude a
dangerous.
hundred times a day.
Yeah, but it's not dangerous, and it took 60 years for people to realize, wait a second, like maybe this is just really overregulated, right?
Mm.
And it's a similar thing to testosterone. Like it just was demonized, and we could start to look into reasons why it's demonized, and some of it looks pretty looks like it was possibly incentivized to be demonized because of when you start just laying out all the facts about drug companies and Congress at the time, and Congress being a pawn of drug companies, and the FDA being an extension of drug companies, and you start to see, like I said before, all the things that testosterone cures, and which pulls people away from all the medications that people take to maintain their health. And you start to see that it's just a money engine. All these people being sick, keeping people sick, is this money engine. Now, we don't have any proof that there was any intent or intentional incentivization to stigmatize and demonize testosterone. But when you lay out all the facts, it really looks right. So, I mean, so yeah. I mean, like I get it. It You have this actual miracle drug that has not been recognized as a miracle drug.
Mm.
When you think of a miracle drug, you think of something that was just invented. Like I can even say the GLP ones, like I was semaglutide, tirzepatide, like those. There's hundreds of millions of people across the globe who are in better health, right? Reducing cardiovascular risk, reversing diabetes, doing all kinds of things. Those are kind of like a miracle drug. You don't think of a miracle drug being something that's existed for 80 years and it's just been misinformed and misused and again stigmatized and demonized. But that's exactly what testosterone is. It's And if you look at the new studies, like when we pull up the new studies, it does read like science fiction. Like
Mm.
we're reversing all these disease states from the use of this testosterone. And the newer studies that have come out are showing just that. There was a study done in that came out in 2022 in the industry. We call it the Finnish study. It was done on Finnish men. The largest, longest run study on TRT. The end result of the study was done on over 70,000 men. The end result of this study was that people on TRT have lower all cause mortality than people who do not take TRT. So people on TRT live longer. You're healthier and you live longer. And there's just no question about that anymore.
That's a big benefit.
Yeah,
Talking about the drugs,
yeah.
marijuana didn't help anybody dance better at the nightclub,
It
but
made you
everybody
think that
drinking ended
either.
up.
It made you think
People are
that either.
drinking.
That's important.
Yeah, people drinking alcohol were always in fights. They, at the end of the night, drunk, carrying on.
Yeah.
Um, what what are some of the things that, as men, we do that impacts our testosterone level? In Australia, the legal drinking age is 18, but
Mhm,
definitely people start drinking at 15 and 16 at parties. What
mhm.
are the things that we do in the early days that impact our testosterone levels?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and I do want to bring attention to this mainly because it is overstated that things like you know things like just being obese or slightly poor diet or maybe even drinking here and there will reduce your testosterone, and you need to you need to like for instance like the thing that the medical community has kind of established is you need to stop being fat first and then your testosterone will raise, like the whole idea that being obese will actually reduce your testosterone. I mean, they have science that they use to show that, and it kind of makes sense, but we don't see it in the field. We
Mm.
don't we So let me answer your question this way. If you have a terrible lifestyle and you do drugs and drink daily or even too much, and you just eat like garbage, and like again drugs, garbage, yes, your hormones are going to be trashed because of that. What we find though is that most people who understand that they're not feeling right, they're not feeling, have, and by the time especially they're coming to look for treatment, they they have done all of the things, right? They under you People know that, hey, listen, if I do drugs every day, if I eat really bad, like I'm going to feel like crap,
Mm.
right? So that's people do do clean that up, and there's not really not a huge subset of the population that's actually doing that. So, but and what has seeped over from that idea though is now people who are, even from obese to even just slightly obese, people are using that excuse as why your testosterone lower, especially like the medical community. Like and doctors will hold back testosterone from people, or people will advise against testosterone because you need to uh, lose all the weight before. And then that should make your testosterone club. Before you start testosterone, you should lose the weight. And we find like exactly what I said before, like testosterone reduces metabolic disorder. It puts you into a positive reinforcing cycle. Not only does it take you out of that catabolic state, it increases your metabolism, it reverses diabetes, and it also gives you the dopaminergic effect to go to the gym, see results. And when you start seeing results in the gym, it gives you more dopamine to go back and exercise more and to put down the donuts, right? And to put down the bad food. There's a positive reinforcing cycle.
Mm.
If you are in a catabolic state, your hormones are low, and you start to exercise, you're not going to see any results because you have low testosterone, and that's where the results come from. So you're eventually just going to quit working out because you're not seeing any results, and you are going to go to what was comforting for you. And foods are dopaminergic. They give you a dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins. It's a huge uptake of those neurotransmitters. So you just go back to what's comfortable, right? So it's
Mm.
about putting yourself in that dopaminergic state. So there's overstatement of you have to lose weight first before your testosterone. No, we see people lose weight all the time, and their testosterone really doesn't move much. It Even if like there's something called total testosterone and free testosterone, and even if the function of eating better actually raises what we call SHBG, which lowers your free testosterone. So even if people's total testosterone increases, their free testosterone stays the same, because just by a function of them eating better, right?
Mm,
So we find that people's testosterone levels generally, now not always, some people do dramatically have a dramatic effect, but it's rare. Most people's testosterone doesn't really move when they just lose weight and start eating better, right? I mean, preventing except for in instances where people live a terrible lifestyle, right? Again, if you're a drug addict and you're just eating terrible or hardly eating at all, yes, everything's going to be in the gutter. But but for the most part, people don't, improving their lifestyle doesn't change their hormone level. Get your hormone level up, put into effect the exercise regimen and the diet, and you'll just start seeing massive results relatively quickly. And it puts in this positive reinforcing cycle to keep exercising, keep eating better because you're building something now, and you're
mm,
seeing the results, and you're excited about building the new you, and that's what works the best.
mm. I know when I was younger, um, all of my mates were athletes, and we would train maybe 3, 4 hours a day, and we would eat KFC, Red Rooster, McDonald's, and we'd never put on any weight. But we were
Mhm.
always hungry, so we'd always be eating. Like if KFC was close to the river, that'd be the first place we had to stop at
Yeah.
because we just burn through all of our energy.
Mhm.
But then we'd go back home and we might spend another 2 hours on the trampoline.
Mhm.
And so it's like 5 to 6 hours of workout per day. So we're burning through all of that, but we're still growing muscle.
Yeah.
And we might have a couple of beers or a couple of bourbon and cokes, but it was kind of rarer at the younger age because
Mhm.
we just wanted to make sure that we could sleep that night, wake up early and do it again. So
Yeah.
naturally it was like, oh, well, if I have that bourbon and coke or I've had that beer, it's going to ruin my sleep and
Mhm.
then I'll ride bad tomorrow. So
Mhm.
it's like kind of like that habit stacking. It's like, I don't want that because it's going to take away something.
Yeah.
So we would ride, we would eat fairly well, would eat mum and dad's food. And then as we got a little bit older, what I noticed was the alcohol was a lot more social. And so in Australia, it was common just to have a beer every night. But a beer leads to two, and then the legal limits like you can have two in the first hour and one beer every hour after that. So in the Australian culture, it could be normal to have 6 beers a night, and that's just totally normal. And
Mhm.
I would go out with mates and they would do that. And I'm like, that's doing something inside. I can't uh, tell you what it is. I don't know what it is, but it's depleting my energy.
Mhm.
I lose my focus. I lose my drive. And the next day, I'm just really sluggish. So
Mhm.
something's happening internally and
Mhm.
I don't like it. So by the time I was probably 27, I moved to the Middle East. And in the Middle East, it was really hard to access alcohol. So it's kind of out of sight, out of mind.
Mhm.
And when I got there, it was kind of there was no alcohol. I slept better. I did more exercise. And I wanted to be doing more of that.
Yeah.
And then I came back to Australia, came back to the old environment, and I realized that everybody was still having 4, 5, or 6 beers a night.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's doing something inside,
Yeah.
and I don't like it.
Mhm.
And so since then, now I'm now 46 this year. It's been 20 years of just limited alcohol
Mhm.
intake, very limited.
Mhm.
And I look at my body in comparison to other people's body. I can only judge it externally,
Mhm.
but I can see that their bodies are becoming really soft.
Mhm.
The muscle mass is like they're skinny fat. They might
Mhm.
okay, you can fit in your slim fit suit, but there's
Yeah.
no muscle there. There's no strength to the body. It's
Yeah.
just a frame.
Mhm.
And I look at it and go, it's not healthy.
Yeah.
But I don't think they really understand the importance of diet.
Mhm.
I've been on a keto diet for the past 3 weeks. And what I noticed by just getting the sugar out of the diet, so
Mhm.
no Coca Cola, no Pepsi,
Yep.
as soon as I got the sugar out of the diet, I went through a detox for about 3 days and I had this really intense headache. And I thought,
Oh, yeah.
this is must be what it feels like to come off a drug, but I'm only coming off sugar.
Yeah.
I stopped the flours and the grains, and within about 4 days, a back pain that I had for about 6 months started to disappear. And I
Mhm.
thought to myself, these were all inflammatories
Mhm.
inside the body.
Mhm.
And then I'd also been studying creatine. And, 20 years ago, if you mentioned creatine, people would associate it with steroids, like, oh, creatine, steroids, gym junkie. And I
Yeah.
started to listen to Huberman and these other people, and they were saying that if you start to megadose creatine, 10, 15, 20, up to 30 grams a day, that creatine will work its way to the brain. You
Mhm.
will have better focus, better saturation into the muscles. And that back pain, once I started the creatine, virtually disappeared.
Mhm.
And I just maintained that. And the inflammation left the body. I dropped
Mhm.
about 4 kilos,
Mhm.
but the clarity in the mind came back. The depth of sleep extended and the consistency extended.
Mhm.
Sleep latency shortened. Head hits the pillow and wife says, Daniel, you're already snoring.
Mhm.
And all I'd done was just change what I was putting into the body.
Yeah.
And that internal environment changed really quickly.
Mhm.
But all, as you mentioned before, like the desires went up as well.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to do more gym. Last night I was out walking my golden retriever from 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock at night. It was like, I want to get these 10,000 steps in.
Mhm. Yeah.
And then I didn't get sleep disturbed. I was
Yeah.
passed out. So I think, based on my
Mhm.
testosterone levels that I've had tested before, mine are still quite healthy. But
Mhm.
I think that's quite rare with a lot of men. And the men that I know who have had low testosterone
Mhm.
and have had testosterone replacement therapy, their lives have turned around.
Oh, yeah.
They look younger, they stand taller,
Mhm.
they speak with more clarity, they
Mhm.
make better choices in life. All of them have stopped alcohol
Yeah.
and drugs. All of their incomes went up.
Mhm.
Their bad relationships disappeared and they attracted better ones into their life. And I
Yeah.
haven't seen anyone on testosterone replacement therapy who's done it correctly complain about it.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
haven't said there's any negative effects.
Or go backwards in life, right? Yeah, and you're right. Like there's no negative health outcomes. There's no you don't go backwards in life. It's not like, oh, I started testosterone and I lost my job and did all this stuff and my life just went to hell. Like that doesn't happen. And you're right. It's because of this clarity and confidence now. And
Mm.
so one of the I when I started started doing all this and when and even today, like I get emails every single day of people. I still do. I use since I started this, I would get emails of people thanking me. They thank me for helping them become a better husband or wife to their spouse, a better father or mother to their children, and a better supporter of their family for exactly the reasons that you just described. Right? They have more energy, they have more confidence to go out and ambition and motivation to go out and do better in life, and more energy to play with their kids, and more like when your testosterone levels are right, you're actually more you have just better emotion. Your emotions are better to deal with your spouse and to help your spouse do things and be the provider and um, be the protector and provider that you need to be, like especially as a man. Right?
I
That,
think for many years, being masculine was looked down upon. It was frowned upon to
yeah,
be masculine, to be the provider, to
yeah,
be the breadwinner, to stand tall for your family, to
yeah,
protect them, not just emotionally and financially, but also physically.
yeah,
One thing that I have worked in my career for a long time is men and women who had been perpetrated or sexually abused at a young age. And I thought to myself, there has to be something in common here with these people who have been abused. And so I was doing the research, and for perpetrators and pedophiles, the first thing that the perpetrator does is they look at the father, and they look at the father and they ask a question: is he a hard target? If he's soft and weak and slow and fat and he's not a protector, the perpetrator will target those children.
that's crazy.
But if they're masculine and strong and
Yeah,
standing tall, and you look at that motherfucker and go, I
mhm,
ain't fucking going close to him, he's going to fucking rip me to
yeah.
shreds, they run.
It makes sense.
And,
I never would have thought of that, but it makes sense.
and I say to my children, they're like, Dad, you're so much bigger than everybody else. And I said, well, what I've got to do is I've got to remain strong because I know what these perpetrators do. They hang out, they peep through the bushes, and they look for the easy prey.
Hmm.
And if I look like a hard target, they might just say, I'm not going to fuck with those people.
Yeah,
So in my environment here, I'm 6 foot tall, 105
yeah,
kilos, and people just look at my size and like, I don't want to mess with that dude.
yeah,
Whether I can fight or not, it doesn't matter. It's just like
yeah,
the sheer size
yeah.
that it's a deterrent. And I
What?
think all men,
Yep.
doesn't matter, you don't have to be 6 foot,
Yeah, right.
but you got to be strong because you look at it and you're like, I wouldn't give lip to that dude.
Y- Yeah.
I
Well,
wouldn't want to
and
cut in front of him.
it goes to what I said about how the world started treating me differently, and
Mm,
and the world treats you differently based on your physical appearance, and
mm,
and there's just no question about that. It's just the way the world works, right? So as I stated, when I suddenly put on 34 pounds of muscle, like everybody started treating me differently, and I started automatically getting respect. I got a raise for no. I was terrible at that job. I just got a raise just because I looked better. People wanted to befriend me. It was I had instant respect, like I said, and people notice you. So there was a study done on rats, right? And again, this is one of the problems of testosterone being a controlled substance. You can't do these studies on humans like you should be able to. But the study done on rats, and the rats who were given testosterone, because there's a myth that testosterone causes rage, right? And that's a myth. It's not true. Actually, testosterone makes people less anxious and have better attitudes and um, be more altruistic. There's also there's studies showing that people are on testosterone are more altruistic than those who are not.
mm,
Um, and I have people tell me all the time that their attitudes are much better after hormone replacement therapy, right? Men and women. So there was a study done on rats, and it showed, and one of them was to test aggression, and it showed that male rats, were only more aggressive in situations where their territory or their part of their tribe or part of their group was being threatened. Only in those situations. Otherwise, they showed no more aggression than any other rat. So I think we can all agree, just like you were saying, being more aggressive in situations where you're protecting your family or your territory is not a bad thing, right? And yeah, so exactly
we
what you
should.
are
We should do it.
what you have seen is exactly correct. I would like to get to another thing too, like
Can I
when you
tell you a quick
started
story?
talking. What's that?
I'll give you a quick story. I'll give you a quick story
Yeah, yeah, go
before
ahead.
we change the topic.
Yeah, go ahead.
My daughter said to me, she said, "Dad, the people at my school think you're angry," and I said, "Good." And what I do is I go stand out the front of her school. There's 1,500 students from
Yeah,
year 7 to year 9, and I stand out there with my football shorts on and my
yeah.
shirt, arms crossed, sunglasses on, just staring in at the school. And I want the boys to see me, and I want them to say, "I'm not going to touch his daughter, because if I touch her, he's going to touch me." I stand there with an angry look, and she says, "They think you're angry." And I said, "Good. You
Good.
tell them that I am. I'm very aggressive, and make sure the boys know."
That's really
And I've
funny.
never been in a fight in my life.
Yeah, that's really funny. I like that. Um, Something else I wanted to address is what you talked about the inflammatory, right? So you're absolutely correct. Sugars and short chain carbohydrates and processed foods are inflammatory, and a lot of like fatigue and a lot of aches and pains are caused by inflammation. A lot of problems are caused by inflammation. So when you notice when you went on a carnivore diet, and some people do notice this, others are don't have such an inflammatory response to these kind of carbohydrates, but some people do. And and a lot of people will drop a lot of water weight when they go on carnivore diets too, because there's
I
just
dropped
this
4 kilos.
inflammatory response. Yeah, there's just this inflammatory response, and you notice better everything. And so this brings me to SIRS, which I know you've experienced. That when looking at your history, you've experienced SIRS, what we call cellular inflammatory response syndrome, or for you, Epstein Barr created this cellular inflammatory response, which means that your immune system is attacking what it considers an antigen inside your cells. And in your case, it was the Epstein Barr. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. In this case, it's the Epstein Barr. So what you have, what happens in this case when your immune system is attacking either the Epstein Barr virus, or it could be any toxin, anything your body considers an antigen or a pathogen, whether that come from gluten, whether it come from all these carbohydrates, like these strange carbohydrates that it doesn't understand, or environmental toxins. Again, like the food you eat, the pesticides and the antifungals and everything on the food. If it's attacking inside your cells, the cell walls inflame, and it's called inflammatory cytokines. These cytokines build up and inflame the cell walls. Every cell in our body has a purpose, right? A purpose for the greater body. The each cell either uh, gives out either a peptide or a protein that has a greater function for the organ, and then and in turn the greater function for the body. If we're inflaming these cell walls, it makes it hard for things to get into the cell that need to get in, such as testosterone, right? Or there's a lot of things that have to diffuse into the cell walls. Testosterone is one of them, or the protein or peptide to diffuse out of the cell to have a function in the greater body, right? To make the whole body run. So if we're inflaming these cell walls, then our cells aren't performing like they should, and therefore, and that comes to us in these inflammatory responses, which can cause chronic fatigue, and a lot of doctors call that chronic fatigue syndrome, when
Mm.
it's really just this inflammatory cellular inflammatory response syndrome. Um, and doctors have given it different names: chronic fatigue, chronic Lyme, Epstein Barr is another reason for it. There's some other things too. But it's all the same concept. This concept, right? So, like you were noticing, when you stop if you can stop some of the toxins, in your case, it was some of these wheats and processed sugars and refined carbohydrates. When you stop that, you were able to reduce the inflammation and your life improved. You got more energy, the fatigue abated, and your pains, your joint pains, right? So, and that's good. It's important. Let's look at, and we do that a lot as well. Let's look at the root cause of your fatigue, and if there's pains of the pains, and let's just try to get to the root cause of these things. And a lot of it has to do with diet, but also what testosterone does. Another function of testosterone is it suppresses overactive immune system. So it will suppress T helper 1 and T helper 2 differentiation into T helper 2. So things like chronic fatigue, we have a lot of patients have chronic fatigue syndrome or Epstein-Barr, or have been labeled with chronic Lyme disease. And testosterone suppresses a lot of the immune system from attacking inside the cells, and prevents this inflammatory response. So what we have from people who have these chronic conditions, they say that although it's not a cure, right, but it definitely improves. And they say, like, I've had people describe it as, my energy level on a scale of 1 to 10 was a negative 12, right? Like that's how they were, just bone crushing fatigue, right?
Mm.
And then when they took testosterone, they say it came up to about like 5 to 7. So at least like I could function normally. And
Mm.
so like testosterone helps these situations too. I agree. Like it's also important to look at, like you did, look at some of the root cause of, like, what are the toxins that are actually causing some of these inflammatory cytokines. But I thought it was interesting, and knowing your history too, that you
Mm.
brought that up, and that's one of testosterone's many functions, is to act as to suppress overactive immune systems that is
Mm.
causing these inflammatory responses.
Mm. The root cause for me is, especially where I live in the world, is we're focused on traditional Chinese medicine,
Yeah.
and we look for the root cause first.
Mhm.
And the last thing we want to do is use a Western style medicine.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
the spectrum's different. Is they will start looking for the root cause and then work the other way. And even with my back, what was interesting for me was when I had the back pain, I really didn't know what it was. So I went to the doctors, and I went to the Western style doctors here. And I sat down in front of the doctor and I said, "Look, I've got this back pain. It's got to be like 7 out of 10. Some days I can't walk. I haven't injured myself. I don't know what's going on." And so she spun the chair around, tapped me on the back, 1, 2, 3, and she said, "Go for an x ray." So the examination was listening to me for 15 seconds, tap,
Mhm.
tap, tap, sent for an x ray,
Mhm.
x ray done, come back, looks at this. Okay, you've got a degenerative disc in your spine. And I'm looking at the x ray and I'm going, it doesn't look like there's anything difference between that disc and that one and that one. Like I can't see it. And I've
Yeah.
had plenty of x rays done before. And I'm like, I'm not convinced.
Yeah.
And she wrote me a prescription for pills and then said, go and do this therapy. Total of 3 minutes.
Oh my God. Yeah.
and there were 60 people in the lineup. And I went, this is not right.
Hmm.
So I took the prescription. I didn't get the medicine and I didn't go to the therapy because
Was it an
nobody listened to
opioid?
me.
Was it an opioid that she prescribed you, or was it
Um, I
okay?
don't know what it. I don't know what it was. It
Uh,
was written in Chinese, but I didn't get it. So I said to my wife, I said, "Give me another doctor." So I came back to another doctor, and he sat me down for about 15 minutes, and he said, "Look, I don't know what it is. Let's go for an MRI
mhm,
because it just seems to be persistent." He said, "But I'll give you some painkiller medications." So I took the painkillers only when I really needed it
mhm,
because I didn't know if they were opioids. But I'm like, I don't want to take the painkiller and think the pain's not there and end up actually injuring myself even worse. So I'll deal with the pain. So I went for the MRI, came back, nothing wrong.
mhm,
Now I'm thinking by this stage, nobody at the Western style clinic has asked me anything about my diet, nothing about my sleep.
mhm.
So I set another appointment and came back to another doctor and he said, we could do some acupuncture. And so he put the needle in and I went, ah!
Mhm.
And I said, I think that hurts. But the pain came back. So I went back to him and he said, that's interesting. Let me give you an injection. So he gave me an injection. He said, this will take the pain away for a month. The needle hurt really bad.
Yeah.
The next day I still had the pain, but the pain was coming from the needle. And then the pain came back and I thought, oh, this is wrong. This
Mhm.
is this is not right. So I went to my Chinese doctor and that he started to ask a couple of different questions. How's your sleep? What type of bed do you sleep on? He said, your bed's probably too soft. Go get a bamboo mattress. So I got the mattress, pain went away. He started to look at some other things, started to improve the sleep. And that started to have an incremental improvement. Then I started to learn about the creatine, and that made a big difference.
Mhm.
But there was one change in my life that I hadn't considered. It was getting a dog. So I previously had a French bulldog,
Mhm.
10 kilos. I'd walk her, no drama. But
Mhm.
now I've got a golden retriever that's 34 kilos
Mhm.
and the strength of a 100-kilo man.
Mhm.
And what I realized was when the dog's walking me, he's
Mhm.
pulling me and I'm holding the leash on the right hand side. It's making me twist. It's putting the pressure on the lower part of the back.
Hmm.
So the root cause was walking the dog.
Oh my
And I
god.
only figured that out because the back was so sore that I couldn't walk him for 3 days.
Mhm.
And then I finally got the connection. It's the dog.
Oh my
So how did I treat the root cause? I got a choker chain. I put a choker chain on the dog and my back got better.
oh my god. That's funny.
But I had to come at it from so many
Yeah.
different angles, from the physical component to the lifestyle components.
Yeah.
And it was really getting back to that root cause
Mhm.
because the gym and the exercises that I was doing weren't the problem.
Mhm.
It was other things. And I think we've got to get to the root cause, but it takes time.
Yeah.
Western medication is, in my opinion, a lot of times it's just a band aid solution. Like when I was going to the doctors,
Oh
it
yeah. They
wasn't
just
going to get
treat
to the root
symptoms.
cause. It was just keep taking the pill.
It's reactive, and they just yeah, it's
Yep.
reactive, not proactive, and they just treat your symptoms, and that's it.
Yep.
What?
Had to-
Um. Do you know how much? Because you mentioned, nobody asked you about your diet. Nobody asked you about these other things. Like you said, it was just this reactive approach to I have back pain. Okay, let's just let's just deaden your nerves so that you don't feel the back pain anymore. Instead of like, let's figure out the inflammatory response that's causing it to press on
Mm,
nerves or causing your tendons to rub against your bones because tendons inflame and then they rub against the bone and that's where a lot of pains come from. Most joint pains are caused by unless you've actually really just like dislocated something or in some cases like your skeletal structure has moved, but most cases of pains are inflammatory. It's just
mm,
your tendons or muscle itself is actually inflamed and is rubbing against bone, and then that causes pain. Or a lot of
mm,
times it's inflammation against a nerve, and inflammation pressing on a nerve causes just intense pain. Right.
mm.
So, do you know how much Western, or especially in the United States, like they learn about nutrition in medical school? These are people who've gone to school for at least 8 years, right? Medical school. They do 6 hours of nutritional training in 8 years.
Mhm.
6 hours. They just don't learn anything about nutrition. They don't learn anything about hormones either. The hormones is stigmatized and demonized, so they don't. It's not in their curriculum. Not even not another thing like your endocrinologist. Like people think, oh, I go to check my testosterone. I should go to my. It's an endocrine hormone, so I should go to my endocrine doctor, my endocrinologist. They don't learn about it either.
Mhm.
Your your for females, their OBGYN doesn't learn about their hormones. Urologist, endocrinologist. It's just not in their curriculum. It's been demonized right out of medical school.
Mhm.
Right? So they don't have any training on hormones. They don't have any training on nutrition. So just like you said, it's purely reactive.
Mhm.
Like I'm having a pain, let's deaden the nerve so you don't feel the
Mhm.
pain.
For me, with inflammation, as soon as I stopped dairy, the swelling left my stomach.
Hmm.
The best thing for my wife, she's like, "You've stopped farting." And I used to say to her, she's like, "Daniel, you got some serious gas." And I said, "It's not that I'm trying to gas to piss you guys off. It's just like I've got a lot of gas and I don't know what's going on." And I noticed that when I got to 40, that my body started to change really quickly. And at 40, I was even questioning myself, like, I don't know what to consume for my body anymore. Like, it seemed to be like in the 20s and 30s, I could put anything in there and there'd be no drama. But as I hit 40, it was like every year it was starting to change and to react differently. And if I had one small coffee with milk, I could fart all day. And I'd say to my wife, I'd say, look, I've done the research. I'm legally allowed 14 farts a day. It says it healthy is 14 farts a day. And I'd tell the kids I'm allowed to fart 14 times. And they're like, Dad, that stinks. One day without milk, the gas stopped. And then my wife said, "What's happened to my husband?" I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "Well, you're not farting anymore. Who are you?" And I said, "I can drink milk again." She said, "No." And that was the difference. And then last week, it was on Christmas Day. It was really cold here. And I said to my wife and my son, "Let's go for a cruise. Let's go for a drive. I'll take you to Starbucks." And I got there and I thought, I'll have a hot chocolate. By the time I'd finished half a small hot chocolate, my stomach had just popped out.
Yeah. Wow.
And for the next 2 days, I felt pregnant and the bowels went soft. And I went, oh my gosh, that's what half a cup of
Yeah.
milk does to the body. That's not
Yeah.
healthy. And coming back to what you were saying about the doctors learning about nutrition, nobody ever asked me about milk.
Yeah.
Nobody.
Yeah. Yeah. It, in my, I went to school for biochemistry, and we learned like pretty early in some of our like physiology and anatomy that humans you actually lose the enzyme to process lactose when you come off your mother's milk, right? Because then there's a period where when you need it to process your mother's milk, but after that, like most people actually lose an enzyme to process um, lactose efficiently. So it causes problems for a lot of people. There's a lot of people who are more lactose intolerant than they think, and it does cause problems. And like you went all the way into your 40s without knowing that, right?
Mm,
And that it happens. It's true for a lot of people.
mm. I think I knew it unconsciously,
Hmm.
but it hadn't still registered in the conscious mind because it's like an addiction. If you put a block of cheese in front of me and a packet of chips or biscuits, I could consume the whole thing like an addict and I'd keep going. If you gave me pasta and spaghetti bolognese, I would load up the cheese on it.
Hmm.
If it was like mashed potato and I'd get the air fryer, I could load it up with cheese.
Hmm.
And it was like an addiction. And all of those things were causing inflammation in the body. It was like the latte. I could smash three.
Hmm.
We call them Aljo Shao Natia, a small flat white, one after another. I could drink six of those a day, but
Hmm.
it was all the addiction.
Hmm.
Where if I just sip on black coffee,
Hmm.
I don't have the ups, I don't have the downs, I don't have the bloating,
Hmm.
but it's controlled. It's like, okay, I can have a sip, I can finish my flask, and
Hmm.
that's it. And there's no crash after it. But if I drink Coca Cola, I'll find that I'll drink Coke, I'll cleanse the palate, I'll dip back into the bad food, I'll
Mhm.
cleanse the palate with the Coke and I'll just keep feeding it in.
Mhm.
But then all the sugars, again, the belly pops, the
Yep.
energy drops.
Mhm.
And I know that those things that create inflammation are also the things that are most addictive, which tells me that's bad.
Mhm.
Because when I eat vegetables, which, say, with part of my diet at the moment, we have a lot of hot pot here. So, hot pot is you get a boiling pot, soup base, normally herbal, and you're just putting cabbage, lettuce, greens, mushrooms in there. And that diet is like 90% vegetable. But once I finish the pot, it's not like I'm going back to fill it up with more vegetables. The body says, you're good. And then from, say, 5 o'clock at night, when we eat at 5 o'clock and we finish by 5:30,
Mhm.
I don't have breakfast till 7 o'clock the next morning,
Mhm.
and I crave nothing.
That's
But if
fantastic.
I've had some Western style food that's ultra high processed,
Mhm.
I want to have another snack before bed.
Mhm.
I want to get up and I want to have something processed again.
Mhm.
It's like a drug wearing off.
Yeah.
But with this style of diet, it's clean. I don't crave. If I don't need to snack,
Yep.
but if I do snack, I'll probably have a sweet potato.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
other diet's just
It
shit.
it's really interesting, and it's that glucose response, right? So the carbohydrates, especially short chain, and especially the sugars, are going to spike your glucose, and then your your body, the glucose makes you produce insulin, and the insulin either pushes the glucose into your muscles or stores it as fat. The all the insulin, it will reduce your glucose, so now your glucose comes down, and you produce ghrelin, which gives you the hunger hormone. It makes you
Mm,
hunger when your glucose down, not when you actually need more nutrients, or when you get hungry just because your glucose is down from because it was spiked, and then it goes down
mm,
from the insulin, right? If you can get on a diet that doesn't include carbohydrates, right, then you're not using glucose. Your body actually has to switch to ketosis, and you start
mm,
using ketones. You start using fat stores, triglycerides, free fatty acids as energy, and your glucose doesn't move. So you don't produce ghrelin, you don't produce insulin, you don't produce ghrelin. That's why you don't get hungry, because
mm,
your glucose doesn't dip.
mm,
So it's a great way to not crave and to control the hunger.
mm,
Interestingly enough, so what's another reason that we crave those high processed foods or the high sugar foods or high fat foods is because that's how we evolved, right? We evolved to crave the higher energy foods. There's a lot of energy in glucose. It spikes your glucose way up. Your body can power itself off of the glucose. It's actually where your body will use energy first, is glucose if it's there. If it's not, then your body will switch to ketosis, right? But and that's what you want. You actually want your body in ketosis. But in the you got to think we evolved all our mechanisms for the caveman days, right? When food was scarce. So
mm,
we craved really high energy food so that you could store fat and use that as later, right? Like it's all about getting as much energy as you can, storing it, and then, like I said, in a catabolic state, your body will actually use its own proteins first as a primary source of energy when you're in a catabolic state, or when you're supposed to be sedentary, is the only time your hormones are supposed to go down. You're in a catabolic state. So so now the but we evolved to crave those because it's dopamine. It gives us a huge dose response, right? We get dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, endorphins from high energy food, so that's why you crave it.
mm,
And it's hard to stay away. And so now that we live in this, since the industrial revolution, we live in a food superfluous environment where there's calories everywhere, and there's
mm,
calories. Ironically, bringing this all back to hormones, the best way to deal with a high calorie environment where there's food everywhere is, again, this testosterone is putting you in the anabolic state. It's switching your energy pathway to use fat stores as a primary source of energy, and it's building muscle as the insulin sensitive tissue. And so it reverses the diabetes, it reverses it, it deals with glucose, it deals with insulin. It's the best way to deal with this new environment since the industrial revolution of superfluous fluid and calories and refined sugars and everything everywhere. But again, like you've discovered, a better even better way to deal with it is also to just not cut out all those high calorie dense foods, or the short chain carbohydrates, or especially glucose.
mm. And new disciplines. And what I learned from my experience was that We eat every day, but oftentimes we're reactive to it. You get up in the morning, it's like, oh, what am I going to eat? Now, I've
Mhm.
done this for 46 years. Wouldn't have I figured that out by now? Lunchtime, reactive, what am I going to eat?
Yeah.
Shouldn't have I figured out by now? Like dinner time, I've done it every night for 46 years.
Yeah.
Shouldn't I know? And I realized that I had to make new disciplines and stack new habits. So, what I do is I say, when I go for my nighttime walk, I've got time for me. I'm not a dad anymore. I'm not a husband.
Mhm.
It's just me and the dog.
Mhm.
So I'll take him for a long walk, but then on the way back, I go past the supermarket and I get the fresh meat.
Mhm.
But if I don't take the dog for a walk, I don't get the fresh meat, and then I'm reactive with the food the next day.
Oh, yeah.
So it's having those new daily disciplines to make sure
Mhm.
that the fresh food is there. Because I prefer to get it fresh than to freeze it. It's just easy for me because it's less resistance. Because if it's frozen meat, it adds another two steps in the chain. I've got to
Mhm.
go to Costco. I've got to buy a big slab. I've got to come home. I've got to repackage it. I've got to put it in the freezer. Then I've got to get it out and thaw it. And so there's like 4 or 5 extra steps. But if I take the dog for a walk, go to Carrefour, get the fresh meat, put it in the fridge, all I've got to do is cut it open in the morning. But there's so much resistance doing it the other way. There's too
Yeah.
much planning.
Yep.
And I go, it's too hard. But that habit stacking is much easier. And if I buy 2 packs like I did last night, this morning I had really nice lean pork and half a punnet of mushrooms, and then I'll just have the exact same for
Mhm.
lunch. So in a way, also because you're mentioning focus today in our lifetimes, we make more decisions in a year than our grandparents made in their lifetime, and we are fatigued and we have decision fatigue.
Mhm.
And so, me thinking about another meal is another decision I don't want to make. So, being reactive is kind of makes sense.
Mhm.
I don't want to make another decision, but if I can just limit that decision and say 2 packs of pork, punnet of mushrooms, it's ready to go,
Mhm.
I don't get that decision fatigue.
Mhm.
It's just set and forget. And my wife will say, "You're so boring." I don't care. It's not your
Yeah.
stomach.
Yep.
Don't have an opinion on my food. Don't
Mhm.
mention anything. And I tell the family,
Yeah.
you eat what you want,
Mhm.
I'll do me.
Yeah.
And then it's just set and forget. And if I do that, I don't have a problem with eating meat and mushrooms for breakfast and lunch. I'm totally
Mhm.
fine with that. And I'll have hot pot. It's like Steve Jobs and Mark Zuckerberg. They have one outfit, pair of jeans and a shirt. That's it. Trump,
Yeah.
blue suit, white shirt, red tie. You never have to make another decision.
Yeah.
And
I
you
like
start to get your focus back. Because humans, we have limited focus. One of my clients was telling me recently, he said, Daniel, um, he said, do you follow chess? And I said, no. He said, do you know much about chess players? I said, no, not at all. He said, a grandmaster chess player burns through 6,000 calories per day
that's
playing
crazy.
chess. And I'm trying to figure that out. He sits on his ass, he moves his hand like 20 to 30 centimeters. I said, I don't get it. He said, making decisions
Mhm.
requires so much energy.
Yeah.
And he's going backwards and forwards in his mind, checking the board, checking the other side, making
Mhm.
decisions, burning 6,000 calories a
That's
day.
crazy. That
And I thought, as leaders in our businesses, as managers, whatever we're doing, we make a lot of decisions.
Mhm.
And so we're going to be fatigued and we're going to burn through so much energy
Yeah.
just making decisions. So if I can just set and forget my meals, I preserve all of that energy. And I can use that energy on other important things like doing 10,000 steps, getting to the gym,
Yeah.
walking a little bit further to the supermarket to get the meat,
Mm.
and I'm
Yeah.
not fatigued by making decisions and I get my focus back.
Really interesting. I never thought of it in terms of what you just said, but I can see it like generations ago, like there just weren't that many decisions to make and everything was kind of routine and everybody did the same thing and it's just like provide shelter and provide for the family and that's it. But now with these complex systems and complex software and businesses and all these decisions we have to make. Like you're actually absolutely right. Like I have brain fog by like 5 or 6. You know, I start working in the morning and I just work right till 5 or 6.
Mm.
And I just like sometimes I'm just like my brain is just fogged. I can't really think anymore. And I never thought about it in terms of it's just so many decisions being made all day long. Interesting.
Well, I used to travel the world and I'd teach a program called Eat That Frog. And it was about doubling your productivity and doubling your time off.
Hmm.
And what I learned was that we could get so good at doubling our productivity that the extra time that we saved, we ended up loading up our plate with more tasks.
Oh yeah.
And I've found the same thing with AI. With marketing programs for my business, in the past, I would pay somebody about $700 to write one email for an email campaign. And sometimes you need five of those. And that process might take a month to get back. Then you got to have a landing page. And it took a lot of time. With new marketing technology, I can create all of that myself in 1 hour.
Mm-mm.
So what would have taken a month, I've got in an hour, but then I've got all this free time. So I load it up with more tasks.
Yeah, just do more
But what we're
things.
supposed to do is to take a step back and go,
Yeah.
I need to breathe. I need to recharge. It's
Mm-hmm.
like our mobile phone. The mobile phone, uh, you should use it when you're making calls, but we use it when we're bored. So we flick through it and the battery goes flat. So
Yeah.
most of us live life with our phone plugged in and fully charged all the time. That's not normal. It's like humans, we're trying to be fully charged from the moment we wake up to the moment we go to sleep.
Yeah.
We need a break. And if we can get good at something like meal preparation, okay, I'll
Mm-hmm.
prepare my meals on Sunday night and I've saved an extra 2 hours per day.
Yeah.
I should be just having a breath,
Yeah.
not loading it up with another task,
Mm-hmm.
which reduces the focus,
Yeah.
depletes the energy. We've got to
And
recharge properly.
and I love how you you know the meal preparation e- equates to discipline, right? And the best way I can describe exactly what you're doing as productive is with bodybuilders. Like that's what bodybuilders do
Mm.
is they'll make their meal for the week, all their meals for the week on Sunday. Yeah, and it's the same thing, but they eat the same thing, but they have it all planned out. They put it all out in Tupperwares, and it's in the morning, like lunch, dinner. I have all my meals planned out for the entire week, and I have it ready and prepared. So all I have to do is just get it out, heat it, and eat it. And look at
No, thank you.
I mean, bodybuilders have amazing physiques. They don't have any obesity. They don't obviously. So yeah, there's a
And they
lot.
sleep well.
Yeah, there's a lot to be
They
said
sleep
for
well.
that.
They want their 8 to 10 hours of
It's
sleep
important.
per night
Hmm.
because they know with the work that I do, um, everything when I'm taking my clients through vocal health screenings, the first thing I detect is sleep because from my work, sleep affects everything.
Hmm.
If you have a poor sleep, let's say you have 5 nights of bad sleep, you're 400% more likely to get a cold or a flu, just bad
Hmm.
sleep. And
Hmm.
half the world's population is sleep deprived.
Hmm.
And if that impacts your immune system for long enough, then you end up with chronic fatigue.
Hmm.
Now, if you can't manage your sleep, you can't manage your emotions.
Hmm.
And if you can't manage your emotions, it takes longer to get to sleep. The body and the organs are trying to process those emotions when you're asleep, so they get agitated. Like a lot of people wake up between 1 and 3 a.m. in the morning
Hmm.
and they're like, oh, there's something wrong with me. The liver's trying to process emotions
Hmm.
between 1 and 3 a.m. But because you've been suppressing it, it comes out in an uglier way. And that uglier way is it wakes you up and saying, hey, pay attention to this emotion. And so you're trying to process it. Now you're awake and you can't fall back to sleep. Grief gets processed through the lungs between 3 to 5 a.m. in the morning. And a lot of people don't realize it. But when we set a goal and we quit or we fail to achieve it, we grieve the loss of the future that we created in the mind.
That's really interesting.
So, have you ever set a goal and you've
Uh,
fallen short of it and you're like, I'm so fucking upset?
hmm.
Like, that was the future I was working towards, and now it's fucked. It's not there.
Hmm.
And because we don't have another goal, there's nothing after that. And what happens in the mind? It says, if there's no goal, there's no future. And if there's no future, there's nothing to live for. And if there's nothing to live for, then why the fuck would I do anything right now? I may as well sit on my butt. So we don't process the emotions. If we don't process the emotions, it impacts our anxiety, it impacts our mood, and it elevates our stress and burnout. And once that happens, it then drifts into our spiritual body. And there's two spiritual factors that are really important from my perspective is courage and procrastination. If we don't have courage, we don't pursue our goals. If we don't have courage, we don't make a change in our lifestyle.
Mhm,
But if we procrastinate, we put it off. Bukra, inshallah, tamanya, I'll do it tomorrow.
mhm,
And so we put off our life. We put off that weight loss. We put off getting our blood test done
mhm,
to check testosterone levels.
mhm.
And we just keep putting it off.
Yeah.
And then you wake up in your 40s and you're like, I'm a fat motherfucker. You know what? It's probably too late for me. No, it's procrastination and it's hurting you at a soul level. It's hurting your soul. You're also a spiritual being and it crashes your spirit.
Mhm,
So I always say to my clients, let's start with sleep. If you can get your sleep better, you'll be healthier, you'll have less fatigue, you'll manage your emotions, your mental health will be better, and you'll want to live a super life.
mhm,
You'll do what it takes.
mhm. Uh,
Hi, mate, I know it's late for you, and I appreciate you staying up late for me and our audience. What's the next step that men and women should take, and where do they get their bloods done, and how do they work with you?
Yeah, 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 no, yeah, thanks. It was really interesting. You certainly made me think of some things that I haven't thought of, so that was really interesting. Yeah, so depending on where you live, in the United States, I have a process for people to be able to get blood work, and that's is the most important thing. Like if you are having some of these symptoms of hormone deficiency, the first thing is do let's get a blood work and let's talk about it. That's the next step, right? Um, if you live in the United States, we have ways that help you get blood work. If you live out of the country, part of the problem is the medical communities in other country they don't understand hormones, so they don't even want to test them. So it's hard to get a blood test for hormones to convince your doctor to even write one because they don't think they're important. They don't learn about it. Ignorance just breeds that they just don't think it's important. It's very very important. Hormones are vital. They're foundational. There's hormones in every vertebrate and every. It's even in plants. It's even in lizards. Um, uh, but yeah, it's a foundational hormone or foundational compound. Um, so yeah, so for me, like, well, I have a YouTube channel, Hormones for Me. If we go on YouTube, it's just Hormones for Me, and Dope Martian. We have a Dope Martian podcast that we're actually launching in the process of starting some really informational podcasts, and um, but I have the Hormones for Me is an educational platform around and throughout our social media. Our Hormones for Me social media is a educational platform around hormones and around and how to dial yourself in and how to really um, make yourself the best version of yourself.
Epic.
Mhm.
Ladies and gentlemen, make sure you head out there. I'll be doing it. And Ryan, I look forward to catching up again soon. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, yeah, it's been really great. Thank you very much.